The space station floated in the darkness between stars like a metal island in an endless ocean. Inside its bright corridors, creatures from dozens of worlds walked together, their boots and claws clicking against the cold floor. The air recyclers hummed quietly, mixing the breathing gases that kept so many different species alive in one place. General Krexthuk stood in the main assembly hall, his huge frame casting long shadows under the harsh white lights. He was a Vorthani, one of the most feared warrior races in the galaxy. His body was covered in thick, black armor that had grown from his own flesh over many years of battle. 8 feet tall and built like a walking tank, he had never met an enemy he could not crush. His compound eyes, like those of a giant insect, swept across the room. Today was inspection day. The Galactic Defense Treaty had forced his proud people to work with soldiers from other worlds. He did not like it. The Vorthani had conquered half the galaxy on their own. Why did they need help from weaker species? But orders were orders. Even a general had to follow them. The first group of soldiers stood at attention before him. Gorvani warriors, their skin looking like living rock, each one 7 feet tall and weighing as much as a small vehicle. Their natural armor could stop energy blasts that would melt steel. Good soldiers, strong, reliable. Next came the Zentari, lean and quick as lightning. Their claws could cut through metal, and their eyes could see in complete darkness. They moved, like deadly cats, always ready to strike. Krexthuk nodded his approval. These were real warriors. The Altarians came next. Not as strong as the others, but smart. Their technology was among the best in the galaxy. They wore powered armor that made them nearly as tough as the Gorvani. They would be useful. Then his eyes fell on something that made him stop and stare. At the end of the line stood a creature so small and weak-looking that Krexthuk wondered if someone was playing a joke on him. It barely reached his chest, covered in soft pink flesh with no natural armor at all. Its arms and legs looked thin enough to snap like dry twigs. Its small, round eyes seemed almost useless for a warrior. The thing wore simple green clothing and carried basic weapons, but everything about it screamed weakness. It had no claws, no armor, no fangs. It looked like it belonged in a nursery, not on a battlefield. Krexthuk's mandibles clicked together in what his people used for laughter. The sound echoed through the hall, causing several soldiers to turn. And look! Other aliens began to notice the small creature too, and whispers started spreading through the ranks. What is this? Krexthuk's voice boomed through his translator device so loud that nearby soldiers stepped back. Someone's pet? A medical helper, perhaps? The small being looked up at him with calm, steady eyes. It showed no fear, no shame, no anger at his words. It simply stood there, straight and still, like a proper soldier. Corporal Jake Martinez, sir, it said in a clear, steady voice. Human Earth Defense Corps. Krexthuk's laughter grew louder. Human? I have never heard of this species. Are you sure you belong in a military unit and not in a hospital? Around them, other alien soldiers began to chuckle and hiss their amusement. The massive Gorvani made deep rumbling sounds in their throats. The swift Zentari clicked their claws against their weapons. Even the usually serious Altarians seemed to find the situation funny, but the human called Jake Martinez just stood there, his face showing nothing. He did not argue. He did not defend himself. He did not even seem bothered by the laughter. I am assigned to the 3rd Expeditionary Force, sir, he said simply. Ready for deployment. Krexthuk leaned down, bringing his huge head closer to the tiny creature. His compound eyes studied every detail of the human's face. Such a strange species. No protective features at all. Soft skin that would tear easily. Small teeth that could barely bite through food, let alone an enemy. Eyes that seemed too small and weak to see properly in low light. Tell me, little human, Krexthuk said, his voice dripping with mockery. What exactly do you think you can do in a real battle? Are you planning to frighten the enemy to death with your terrifying appearance? More laughter came from the watching. Soldiers, some of them were now pointing at the human, sharing jokes in their own languages. Jake Martinez looked straight up at the towering general. I follow orders, sir. I complete missions. I do my job. Your job? Krexthek's mandibles clicked. Faster. And what job could such a delicate creature possibly do? Carry messages? Clean weapons? Cook food for real soldiers? Whatever is needed, sir. The general straightened up, shaking his massive head. This was ridiculous. How had such a weak species even survived long enough to develop space travel? Their world must be incredibly safe and peaceful. No real predators, no harsh weather, no dangers at all. They were probably one of those lucky species that had evolved on a paradise world where nothing ever threatened them. Where is your homeworld, human? He asked. Earth, sir. Third planet from a yellow star. And this Earth of yours, is it a peaceful place? No wars, no dangerous animals, no harsh environments? For the first time since the conversation began, something flickered in Jake Martinez's eyes. It was so quick that most would have missed it. But Krexthek had been a warrior for over 50 years. He knew how to read faces, even alien ones. Earth has its challenges, sir, the human said quietly. Challenges? Krexthek laughed again. What kind of challenges could trouble such a soft species? Running out of sweet fruits to eat? Getting caught in a light rain? Several aliens nearby burst into fresh laughter. The image of these weak creatures, struggling with minor inconveniences, was too funny to ignore, but Jake Martinez just stood there, unchanged. We manage, sir. Krexthek studied the human for a long moment. There was something odd about this creature. Most weak species he had met would be cowering by now, or crying or begging for mercy. But this one just stood there, calm and quiet. It showed no fear at all. Maybe it was too stupid to understand the danger. Or maybe it was just too weak to react properly. Either way, it was not his problem. Very well, Corporal Martinez, he said, putting extra emphasis on the rank to make it sound even more ridiculous. Try not to break anything important during our mission. Like yourself, yes, sir. The general turned away from the human and continued his inspection. But as he moved down the line, he found himself glancing back at the small creature. It had not moved. It still stood at perfect attention, staring straight ahead, completely unbothered by everything that had just happened. How strange. Most species would be upset after such public humiliation. But the human seemed as calm as if nothing had occurred at all. Well, no matter. The creature would stay far from any real fighting. He would make sure of that. The last thing he needed was for one of these fragile beings to get hurt and cause a diplomatic incident. The coalition had enough problems without adding the death of some weakling to the list. As he finished his inspection and dismissed the troops, Krexthek watched the human walk away with the other soldiers. It moved normally, neither fast nor slow, neither proud nor ashamed. Just walking like any other soldier heading back to quarters, but there was something about the way it carried itself that nagged at the back of his mind. Something he could not quite identify. It was probably nothing. Just his imagination making more of the situation than it deserved. After all, what possible threat could such a weak, soft creature pose to anyone? The human disappeared around a corner, and Krexthek put the strange encounter out of his mind. He had more important things to worry about than one insignificant alien from an unknown world. He would soon learn just how wrong he was. The briefing room was packed with soldiers from across the galaxy. The air was thick with the smell of different species breathing different gases. Some needed oxygen like humans, others breathed methane or nitrogen. The life support systems worked overtime to keep everyone alive in the same space. General Krexthek stood at the front of the room, his massive frame blocking out half the wall display behind him. His compound eyes swept across the assembled forces, counting heads and calculating strength. This was his army, his weapon to strike at the heart of enemy territory. The wall behind him lit up with a three-dimensional image of a planet. The world looked dead and hostile, with swirling storms of poison gas and jagged mountains that reached up like broken teeth. Red warning symbols flashed across the surface, marking dangerous areas. "This is Epsilon Ceti," Krexthek announced, his voice carrying easily through the room. "Our target." The image zoomed in on one particular mountain, showing a massive structure built into the rock itself. It looked like a fortress with thick walls and defensive towers. Energy shields flickered around it like a soap bubble made of light. The hegemony of Scarth has built a weapon facility here, the general continued. Our intelligence reports say they are creating something that can crack planetary defense shields. If they succeed, they will be able to attack any world in the galaxy. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Planetary shields were the only thing that kept most worlds safe from invasion. Without them, billions of innocent people would be defenseless. The facility is built deep into the mountain, Krexvek explained. The Scarth chose this location carefully. The planet's atmosphere is thin and poisonous. The temperature swings from freezing cold to burning hot in a matter of hours. The radiation levels are high enough to kill most organic life within a day. He gestured to different parts of the holographic display. The mountain itself is unstable. Earthquakes happen every few hours. Landslides are common. The ground is covered with sharp rocks and deep cracks. Even reaching the facility will be dangerous. A Gorvani warrior raised one massive stone hand. What about the defenses, General? Heavy, Krexvek replied grimly. Energy cannons on the towers. Automated gun turrets around the perimeter. Force fields protecting the main entrance. The Scarth have had months to prepare. They know we are coming. The room fell silent as the soldiers absorbed this information. The mission was going to be harder than anyone had hoped. Here is the plan, the general said, pointing to different sections of the display. My Vorthani warriors will lead the primary assault. We will attack the main entrance head-on. Our natural armor can withstand their energy weapons long enough to break through their defenses. The Vorthani soldiers nodded, their mandibles clicking with approval. They were bred for this kind of fighting. Straight ahead, no tricks, just pure strength and determination. The Gorvani will provide heavy support, Krexvek continued, gesturing to the rock-skinned giants. Your mass and durability will be essential for breaking through their fortified positions. You will follow behind the Vorthani and help clear the way. The Gorvani rumbled their agreement, their voices like distant thunder. The Zentari will handle reconnaissance and sabotage, he said, turning to the lean, quick aliens. Your speed and stealth will allow you to find weak points in their defenses. You will also be responsible for disabling their communication systems. The Zentari hissed their understanding, their claws clicking against their weapons. The Altarians will coordinate our technology and provide electronic warfare support, Krexvek said to the power-armored figures. Your advanced systems will be crucial for dealing with their automated defenses. Each group of soldiers nodded as they received their assignments. Everyone had a role to play in the assault. Everyone except one group, General Krexvek's compound. Eyes found the small cluster of humans sitting quietly in the back corner of the room. They were so small and unremarkable that he had almost forgotten they were there. The human called Jake Martinez sat with about a dozen others of his species, all of them looking equally fragile and weak. The human contingent will remain in reserve, Krexvek announced, his voice carrying a note of dismissal. You will stay at the landing site and provide support as needed. Commander Lisa Park, the human unit leader, started to stand up. She was a woman with short brown hair and sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. General, with respect, my people are trained for this kind of mission. We can contribute more than just staying behind. Krexvek's mandibles clicked with amusement. Commander Park, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this mission requires soldiers who can survive in extreme conditions. The radiation alone would kill your people within hours. The atmospheric pressure would crush your delicate lungs. The temperature changes would freeze or cook your soft flesh. Sir, we have equipment designed for hostile environments, she protested. Our suits can handle radiation and pressure differences. Our technology is specifically built for adaptation. Equipment fails, Krexvek replied firmly. When it does, what remains is the natural strength of the warrior. Your species lacks the physical capabilities necessary for this mission. I will not have your deaths on my conscience. The room had gone completely silent. Every alien eye was focused on the small group of humans. Most of the soldiers looked confused, as if they could not understand why the humans were even arguing. It was obvious they were too weak for real combat. Commander Park's face reddened slightly, but she remained professional. General, my people have extensive experience in hostile environment operations. We have trained for exactly this type of scenario. Training is not the same as natural ability, Krexvik said patiently. A Vorthani warrior is born with armor that can stop energy blasts. A Govani can survive in conditions that would kill most species instantly. A Zentari can move through terrain that would cripple others. What natural advantages do humans possess? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The humans looked at each other, and some of them seemed to be suppressing smiles for reasons Krexvik could not understand. Jake Martinez spoke up from his seat. We adapt, sir. Adapt? Krexvik's laughter boomed through the room. To what? Comfortable living conditions? Peaceful negotiations? Your species has clearly never faced real hardship. We do what needs to be done, Jake said simply. What needs to be done in this case is staying alive, the general replied. The environment of Epsilon Ceti is hostile beyond anything your people have likely encountered. The radiation levels would cook your internal organs. The atmospheric pressure would collapse your lungs. The temperature extremes would freeze your blood or boil your brain. He leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the human section. I have seen species twice your size die screaming in conditions less harsh than what we will face. Your soft, weak bodies would not last an hour on that planet's surface. The humans remained silent, but there was something in their expressions that Krexvik could not quite read. They did not look afraid. They did not look ashamed. They just looked ... patient. The decision is final, he announced. The humans will remain in reserve. They will provide logistical support and evacuation assistance if needed. They will not participate in the actual assault. Commander Park nodded reluctantly. Understood, sir. Good. Now for the rest of you? The assault begins at dawn. The transport ships will take us to the planet's surface. From there, we will have approximately 6 hours to reach the facility and destroy it before the radiation exposure becomes fatal even for our hardiest species. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of his various commanders. This will not be easy. The Scarth are skilled warriors and they have chosen their ground well, but we are stronger. We are tougher. We are the best fighters the galaxy has to offer. The assembled soldiers roared their approval, each species making their own sounds of agreement. The Vorthani clicked their mandibles, the Gorvani rumbled like avalanches, the Zentari hissed like steam. The Altarians hummed in electronic harmony, only the humans remained quiet. Dismissed, Krexvik ordered. Get some rest. Tomorrow we go to war. As the various alien forces filed out of the briefing room, chattering in their native languages about the upcoming battle, the small group of humans remained in their seats. They were passing small electronic devices back and forth, their quiet conversation impossible for the translator systems to pick up. General Krexvik watched them with mild curiosity. They were probably discussing their fear of the upcoming battle, he thought. Or perhaps they were arguing about who would have the safest job during the support operations. It never occurred to him that they might be discussing the mission itself. After all, what could such weak, fragile creatures possibly contribute to a military operation? They would be lucky to survive just being on the same planet as the battle. As he left the briefing room, Krexvik put the humans out of his mind. He had more important things to worry about, like ensuring his real soldiers were ready for the fight ahead. The humans would stay safely behind the lines, out of danger, and out of the way. It was better for everyone that way. The transport ships screamed through the poisonous atmosphere of Epsilon Ceti like metal meteors. Inside the cramped passenger compartments, soldiers from a dozen worlds prepared for battle. The ships shook and rattled as they fought against the planet's violent winds and crushing gravity. General Krexvik stood in the command ship's bridge, watching the surface of the planet grow larger through the reinforced windows. The world below looked like a vision of hell. Jagged mountains rose up through clouds of toxic gas. Lightning storms raged across the continents, turning the sky purple and green. The very air seemed to burn with radiation. Landing in 5 minutes, announced the pilot, a Zentari whose quick reflexes were the only thing keeping them from crashing into the mountainside. Krexthek activated his communicator. All units, prepare for deployment. Remember, we have 6 hours maximum before radiation exposure becomes fatal. Move fast, hit hard, get out. The ships touched down on a rocky plateau about 2 miles from the Scarth fortress. The moment the doors opened, the full horror of the planet's environment hit them. Even through their environmental suits, the soldiers could feel the weight of the toxic atmosphere pressing down on them. The temperature was already dropping as the planet's weak sun moved behind the mountains. Within an hour, it would be cold, enough to freeze exposed flesh solid. Then, as the sun came back around, it would climb to temperatures hot enough to boil water. "Move out!" Krexthek roared, his voice carrying through the communication system. The Vorthani warriors charged forward like a living avalanche. Their natural armor gleamed under the alien sun as they bounded across the broken terrain. Behind them came the Gorvani, their massive forms shaking the ground with each step. The Zentari spread out like shadows, using their speed to scout ahead and find the best routes. In the distance, the Scarth fortress waited like a sleeping giant. Its walls were carved directly into the mountain itself, and energy shields flickered around its towers. Already, the defenders were moving. Weapon turrets swiveled to track the approaching army. The first energy blasts lit up the toxic sky like deadly fireworks. The Vorthani warriors took the hits on their thick armor and kept charging. Some stumbled, but most pressed on. Their natural defenses were holding against the enemy weapons. "First wave is engaging," reported Lieutenant Vextar, Krexthek's second in command. "Enemy resistance is moderate. We are advancing according to plan." But even as he spoke, something was going wrong. The enemy fire was too accurate. The Scarth defenders seemed to know exactly where to aim their weapons. Energy blasts found the weak spots in Vorthani armor with surgical precision. The gaps between armor plates, the joints at elbows and knees, the softer areas around the neck. "Sir, we are taking heavier casualties than expected," Vextar reported, his voice tense. "The enemy seems to have studied our weaknesses." Through his tactical display, Krexthek watched his warriors fall one by one. These were soldiers who had survived dozens of battles, whose armor had protected them from weapons that could melt steel. But the Scarth were targeting them with frightening accuracy. "Send in the Gorvani," he ordered. "Their stone skin should provide better protection." The rock-skinned giants thundered forward, their massive forms absorbing hits that would have killed smaller beings. For a moment, it seemed like they might break through. But then the Scarth switched tactics. Instead of targeting individual soldiers, they began focusing their fire on single points. Multiple energy beams converged on one Gorvani at a time, overwhelming even their incredible natural defenses. The concentrated firepower found the soft spots between their stone plates, bringing down warriors who should have been nearly invincible. "Sir, the Gorvani are requesting heavy support," came another report. "They are taking concentrated fire and cannot advance further." Krexthek's mandibles clicked with frustration. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. His forces were stronger than the Scarth. His warriors were tougher, better trained, better equipped, but somehow they were losing. What about the Zentari? Have they found any weaknesses in the fortress? "The facility is larger than our intelligence indicated," Vextar replied. "It extends deep into the mountain." The Zentari report multiple levels, extensive tunnel systems, and defensive positions we did not know about. The Scarth have had time to prepare much more thoroughly than we expected. The battle raged for another hour. The Altarians tried to use their advanced technology to break through the fortress shields, but the Scarth had countermeasures for everything. Every time the coalition forces found a weakness, the enemy adapted. Every time they tried a new tactic, the defenders were ready. Worse still, the planet itself was fighting against them. The radiation levels were climbing faster than predicted. The temperature was dropping toward the killing zone. Several soldiers had already collapsed from exposure, their environmental suits failing under the extreme conditions? Sir, Vextar's voice was grim. We need to consider withdrawal. We are losing too many soldiers, and the environmental conditions are deteriorating rapidly. Krexthek stared at the tactical display, watching his carefully planned assault fall apart. Red icons marked his fallen warriors. Yellow icons showed soldiers whose equipment was failing. The fortress remained untouched, its shields still strong, its weapons still firing. What about the reserve forces? He asked desperately. The support units? The Altarians are holding the perimeter, but their environmental suits are failing. Faster than expected. They are requesting permission to withdraw to the ships. And the others? The humans are still in position at the landing site. They have not moved from their assigned location. For a moment, Krexthek considered ordering the humans forward. But what could they possibly do that his elite warriors could not? If Vorthani armor could not protect against the Scarth weapons, what hope did soft human flesh have? If Gorvani endurance could not survive the planet's hostile environment, how could delicate humans last more than minutes? Send a message to the humans, he ordered reluctantly. Tell them to prepare for evacuation. We cannot protect them if the situation gets worse. Vextar paused. Sir, I am getting no response from the human unit. What do you mean? They are not answering our communications. All channels are silent. A cold feeling spread through Krexthek's chest. Are they dead? I do not know, sir. Their life signs are not showing on our sensors? The general's compound eyes swept across the battlefield. Through the toxic atmosphere, he could just make out the rocky depression where the humans had taken position. It was about a mile behind the main battle line, in what should have been a safe area, but now there was no movement there at all. Signs of life. No response to communications. Get a reconnaissance team back there, he ordered. Find out what happened to the humans. Sir, we cannot spare any forces from the main battle. Then send a drone, something. I need to know their status. While he waited for the reconnaissance report, the battle continued to go badly. More of his warriors fell. The fortress remained untouched. The environmental conditions grew worse by the minute. Then, without warning, something impossible happened. The first explosion came from deep inside the mountain. It was not the crude blast of the failed assault weapons, but a precise, devastating detonation that brought down an entire section of the fortress wall. Secondary explosions followed, each one perfectly timed and placed to cause maximum damage. Report? Krexthek roared into his communicator. Who is responsible for those explosions? Sir, the blasts are coming from inside the facility. Someone has penetrated the lower levels. Impossible. Our forces never got past the outer defenses. Sir, I am detecting human life signs inside the fortress. Multiple contacts moving through the tunnel systems. Krexthek's world suddenly stopped making sense. That cannot be right. The humans never left their position. Sir, I am receiving a transmission. It is from Corporal Martinez. The general's mandibles clicked in confusion. Put him through. Jake Martinez's voice came through the communicator, clear and calm. There was no strain in his voice, no hint of distress or exhaustion. He sounded like he was having a casual conversation. General Krexthek, this is Martinez. Primary objective is secured. Weapon facility is destroyed. Beginning extraction now. 4. A long moment, Krexthek could not speak. His mind struggled to process what he was hearing. How did you ... when did you... The humans were in reserve position. While you were conducting your frontal assault, sir. We used the distraction to infiltrate through the ventilation systems. The facility's internal defenses were focused on your attack. But the radiation levels ... The atmospheric pressure. Your species cannot survive in such conditions. There was a pause. When Jake's voice returned, there was something different in it. Not mockery, not anger, but a quiet confidence that made Krexthek's exoskeleton crawl. With respect, sir, you might want to reconsider your assumptions about human limitations. Through his tactical display, Krexthek watched in stunned silence as figures began emerging from the collapsed fortress. They moved with smooth, easy steps across terrain that had challenged his own elite warriors. Their equipment was functioning perfectly in conditions that had caused other species' gear to fail, but it was more than their technical success that shook him. It was the way they moved. The retreat signal echoed across the poisonous battlefield of Epsilon Ceti. General Krexthek watched his forces pull back from the Scarth fortress, their mission a failure. Dozens of his best warriors lay dead or dying on the radioactive ground. The weapon facility should have been destroyed, but his army had not even reached the outer walls, but the fortress was gone anyway. Explosions continued to bloom throughout the mountain stronghold. Each blast was perfectly placed, bringing down walls and towers with surgical precision. The massive structure that had taken the Scarth months to build was collapsing like a house of cards. Krexthek stood on a rocky outcrop, his compound eyes fixed on the destruction below. His mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. His elite forces had failed completely. Yet somehow, the mission was succeeding beyond all expectations. "Sir," Lieutenant Vextar approached carefully, his voice uncertain. "The tactical team has analyzed the explosion patterns. The charges were placed at structural weak points throughout the facility. Whoever did this had detailed knowledge of the building's construction." "How is that possible?" Krexthek asked. "Our intelligence was incomplete at best." "Unknown, sir, but the demolition work is flawless. The entire facility will be unusable within the hour." The general turned away from the destruction and looked back toward the landing site. In the distance, he could see the small group of humans making their way across the broken terrain. They moved in a tight formation, supporting each other over the rough ground. Even from this distance, he could see they were carrying equipment and what looked like data storage devices. "Get me a direct communication link to Corporal Martinez," he ordered. "Yes, sir." A moment later, Jake Martinez's voice came through the communicator. He sounded calm and professional, as if he had just finished a routine training exercise instead of the most dangerous infiltration mission in galactic history. "Martinez here, General. Corporal, I need you to explain exactly what happened." "How? Did you get inside the facility without anyone knowing?" "We never left our position, sir, at least not visibly." Krexthek's mandibles clicked in confusion. "What does that mean?" "While your forces were setting up for the assault, we conducted reconnaissance of the surrounding area. We discovered a network of natural caves that connected to the fortress. Ventilation system. The Scarth had been using them to dump waste and excess heat. The radiation levels in those caves would have been lethal. Yes, sir, quite high. But within acceptable parameters for short-term exposure with proper protection." "Short-term?" Krexthek's voice rose. "You were inside that facility for over 2 hours. The mission required thorough completion, sir. We could not afford to leave any of the weapon systems intact." The general felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. "Martinez, the radiation levels inside the facility would have killed a Vorthani warrior in minutes. The atmospheric pressure would have crushed a Gorvani. The temperature extremes would have frozen a Zentari solid." "Yes, sir. Challenging conditions." "Challenging?" Krexthek's voice was nearly a shout. "Those conditions are impossible for organic life to survive." There was a pause before Jake replied. "Perhaps impossible for some organic life, sir." "What is that supposed to mean?" "Humans are adapted for difficult environments, General. Our homeworld taught us to be flexible." Krexthek thought back to his earlier conversation with the human. "You said Earth had its challenges. What kind of challenges?" "Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. Asteroid impacts that killed most life on the planet. Diseases that wiped out entire populations. Predators that hunted us for sport." The general's compound eyes widened. "Your planet tried to kill you." "For millions of years, sir, we learned to adapt or die." "Most of us chose to adapt, but your appearance, you look so fragile." "Appearances can be misleading, General. We do not have natural armor like your people. We do not have stone skin like the Gorvani. We do not have claws like the Zentari. So we learn to make tools. We learn to work together. We learn to Think our way through problems. Krexthek was beginning to understand, and the understanding terrified him. The infiltration. You had it planned from the beginning. We studied the mission parameters during the briefing, sir. We identified several possible approaches. The frontal assault was the most obvious, which meant the Scarth would be prepared for it. The ventilation system offered a more subtle alternative. But the environmental conditions were within acceptable limits for humans with proper equipment and preparation. We have lived through worse. Worse? Krexthek's voice was barely a whisper. Worse than radiation that could kill a Vorthani? Our planet's magnetic field fails periodically, sir. When that happens, cosmic radiation bathes the entire surface. We learned to build shelters and wait it out. This was just another Tuesday. For us, the general stared at the tactical display showing the human positions. Your people. They have been sitting in that depression for hours, watching, waiting. Patience is a human virtue, sir. When you are hunting something bigger and stronger than you are, patience is often the difference between success and death. Hunting? Krexthek felt another chill. What did humans hunt on your world? Everything, sir. Creatures 10 times our size. Pack hunters that move faster than we could run. Ambush predators that could crush us with one bite. We were not the strongest or the fastest or the most dangerous species on our planet, but we were the most persistent. The general thought about the mission briefing, about how confidently he had assigned the humans to reserve duty. You let me underestimate you. We did not need to let you do anything, sir. Every species underestimates humans at first. We have learned to use that to our advantage. How long have you been planning this? Since the moment you told us we were too weak for the mission. We knew you were wrong, but we also knew you would not listen to arguments. So we decided to show you instead? Krexthek looked out at the ruined fortress, at the tactical victory that his forces had failed to achieve. You completed the mission while my warriors died trying. Your warriors are brave, sir. But bravery is not always the best tool for every job. Sometimes cunning works better. Sometimes patience. Sometimes the ability to endure suffering long enough to find a solution. And humans can do all of those things? We are generalists, General. We adapt to whatever the situation requires. Your people are specialists. The Vorthani are perfect warriors. The Gorvani are perfect heavy infantry. The Zentari are perfect scouts, but humans, we are whatever we need to be. The general's tactical display showed the human team approaching the landing site. They were moving in formation, covering each other's movements, acting like professional soldiers. But now he could see what he had missed before. They were not just acting like soldiers, they were soldiers, dangerous ones. Martinez, what else can humans do? What do you need us to do, sir? The simple question hit Krexthek like a physical blow. What did he need them to do? His entire worldview was crumbling around him. Everything he thought he knew about strength, about warfare, about survival, was being turned upside down. I need to understand, he said finally. I need to understand what humans really are. We are whatever the galaxy needs us to be, General. Partners, allies, friends. There was a pause. Or enemies, depending on the circumstances. The last word hung in the air like a threat and a promise combined. Krexthek suddenly realized that he was not just speaking to a soldier from a weak species. He was speaking to a representative of something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. How many humans are there in the galaxy? He asked. Just a few billion on Earth, sir, for now. For now? We are explorers by nature, General. We do not stay in one place for very long. We tend to spread out, find new places, new challenges, new opportunities. Krexthek thought about human persistence, human adaptability, human patience. He thought about a species that had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts and planet-wide disasters. He thought about creatures that hunted things 10 times their size and won. What happens when humans decide they want something? He asked Jake. Martinez's reply was quiet, matter-of-fact, and absolutely terrifying in its simplicity. We get it, sir, eventually. 3 days after the mission to Epsilon Ceti, General Krexlek found himself in an unusual position. For the first time in his long military career, he was asking for a briefing about a species he had previously dismissed as worthless. The humans had changed everything he thought he knew about warfare, and he needed to understand how. The meeting room was smaller than the main briefing hall, designed for private discussions between senior officers. Commander Lisa Park sat across from him at the metal table, her calm eyes studying his massive form. Beside her sat Corporal Jake Martinez, the human who had destroyed Krexthek's assumptions along with the Scarth facility. "Commander Park," Krexthek began carefully, "I believe I owe your species an apology." "That is not necessary, General," she replied politely. "You acted based on the information you had available." "No," he said firmly. "I acted based on prejudice and ignorance. I looked at your people and saw only weakness." "I was wrong." The human woman nodded. "Most species make that mistake initially. We have learned to expect it." "That is what I need to understand," Krexthek said, leaning forward. "How did humans become so dangerous while appearing so harmless?" Commander Park activated a small holographic projector on the table. The air above them filled with an image of a blue and green world spinning slowly in space. "This is Earth, General. Our homeworld." Krexthek studied the planet carefully. It looked peaceful and pleasant, with white clouds swirling over green continents and blue oceans. "It appears to be a paradise world, rich in water and vegetation, ideal conditions for life." "That is what most people think when they first see Earth," Commander Park said with a slight smile. "But appearances can be deceiving. Earth is actually one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy." The hologram shifted to show different periods in Earth's history. Ice sheets covered most of the continents. Volcanoes erupted, throwing ash clouds into the atmosphere. Massive objects from space slammed into the surface, creating explosion craters hundreds of miles wide. "Our planet has tried to kill us for millions of years," she explained. "Ice ages that lasted tens of thousands of years. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades. Asteroid impacts that destroyed most life on the planet. Diseases that killed 90% of the population. Earthquakes, floods, droughts, storms powerful enough to level entire cities." Krexthek's compound eyes widened as he watched the images. "How did your species survive such disasters?" "We adapted," Jake Martinez said simply. "Every time Earth tried to kill us, we found a way to survive. We learned to make fire when the ice came. We learned to build shelters when the storms raged. We learned to store food when the droughts came. We learned to make medicine when the diseases spread." "But survival is just the beginning," Commander Park continued. "Earth did not just try to kill us with disasters. It tried to kill us every single day." The hologram changed again, showing various Earth animals. Massive creatures with huge teeth and claws, swift predators that hunted in packs. Venomous serpents and spiders, tiny insects that carried deadly diseases. "Almost everything on our world was bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we were," she said. "We had no natural armor, no claws or fangs, no poison or venom. We were not the fastest runners or the strongest fighters. By all rights, we should have gone extinct in the first few thousand years, but you did not," Krexthek observed. "No. We learned to use tools. We learned to work together. We learned to think our way through problems instead of fighting our way through them." The hologram showed early humans hunting massive creatures with simple spears and coordinated tactics. "We became persistence hunters," Jake explained. "We could not outrun our prey, so we outlasted them. We could not overpower them, so we outwitted them. We followed them for days, weeks if necessary, until they collapsed from exhaustion. We learned that patience and endurance could defeat size and strength," Commander Park added. "That intelligence and cooperation could overcome individual weakness." Krexthek thought about the mission to Epsilon Ceti. "Your infiltration of the Scarth facility. You used these same principles." "Exactly," Jake nodded. "We could not fight through their defenses like your warriors tried to do. So we found another way. We waited, We watched, we planned, then we acted when the moment was right. But the environmental conditions, Krexvik protested. The radiation, the pressure, the temperature extremes. How did your people survive that? Commander Park's expression became serious. General, humans have lived through ice ages where the temperature stayed below freezing for thousands of years. We have survived in deserts where the heat could kill other species in hours. We have lived at altitudes where the air is too thin for most creatures to breathe. We have survived radiation exposure from our own weapons and industrial accidents. Your equipment, Krexvik beginning to understand. It was specifically designed for hostile environments. All human equipment is designed for hostile environments, she replied, because every environment is hostile to humans. We are not naturally adapted to any specific conditions, so we learn to adapt artificially. Our technology does not replace our natural abilities like other species. It enhances our ability to adapt. Jake Martinez leaned forward. General, when you assigned us to reserve duty, you thought you were protecting us from danger. But danger is what humans are built for? We have been dealing with impossible situations for so long that impossible has become normal for us. What do you mean? Every human alive today is descended from survivors, Commander Park explained. Our ancestors survived ice ages, plagues, wars, famines, natural disasters, and predators that should have wiped us out completely. The humans who could not adapt died. The ones who could adapt lived and had children. After millions of years of this process, adaptability is not just what we do, it is what we are. Krexvik felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. You are saying that humans are evolved survivors. We prefer the term persistence specialists, Jake said with a slight smile. But yes, we are the species that refuses to give up, ever. What does that mean for the galaxy? Krexvik asked quietly. Commander Park and Jake Martinez exchanged a look. It means that humans will spread throughout the galaxy, she said. Not because we are conquerors like some species, but because we are explorers. We see a dangerous world and think, I wonder what is on the other side. We see an impossible challenge and think, I wonder how we could solve that. And if someone tries to stop you, then they become part of the challenge we need to solve. Jake replied matter-of-factly. The general studied the two humans carefully. They did not look threatening. They did not sound angry or aggressive. But there was something in their calm confidence that was more terrifying than any warrior's battle cry. How many humans are there? He asked. About 8 billion on Earth, Commander Park said. A few thousand scattered across other worlds as explorers and diplomats. And if humanity decided to expand into the galaxy in force, we would not need to decide, Jake said quietly. It would just happen. Humans go where humans want to go. It is what we do. Krexvik thought about human persistence, human adaptability, human refusal to accept defeat. He thought about a species that had survived everything their own planet could throw at them and emerged stronger. He thought about what would happen when such creatures encountered the vast, unexplored regions of the galaxy. What do humans want? He asked finally. Commander Park smiled, and for the first time since meeting humans, Krexvik found a human expression genuinely comforting. We want to explore, we want to learn. We want to make friends, we want to help solve problems. And if we cannot be friends, the smile faded slightly, then we want to survive. And humans are very, very good at surviving. General, Jake Martinez said, standing up from his chair, you asked me once what humans could contribute to your forces. I think recent events have answered that question. Indeed they have, Krexvik replied slowly. But I should warn you about something, Jake continued. You have seen what humans can do when we are motivated to help. You probably do not want to see what we can do when we are motivated to hurt. The general's mandibles clicked nervously. Is that a threat? No, sir, Jake said with that same calm confidence. It is just information. Humans prefer cooperation to conflict. But we are prepared for either one. Commander Park stood as well. Thank you for this meeting, General. It has been educational for all of us. As the humans prepared to leave, Krexthik had one final question. What happens now? How do I work with humans knowing what I know? Jake Martinez paused at the door. The same way you work with any other species, sir. You give us missions, we complete them. You trust us to do our jobs, and we trust you to lead us well. And if I give you an impossible mission? Jake's smile was perfectly friendly and absolutely terrifying. Then we will find a way to make it possible, sir. That is what humans do. After the humans left, General Krexthek sat alone in the meeting room for a long time. He stared at the holographic image of Earth still floating above the table, this beautiful, terrible world that had forged the most dangerous species in the galaxy. He thought about his conversation with Jake Martinez, about human persistence and adaptability. He thought about a species that looked weak but could accomplish.